Well, good morning. I'm Sue Hutchins, and welcome to another interview um, with a young man who has been incarcerated and is now out and made a success of his life. His name is Donald. You are viewing Iowa Prison Perspectives, which is a collaboration between Iowa Cure, the Iowa Justice Action Network, and Living Beyond the Bars of Iowa. This collaboration is interviews to inform you, the public, about prison from all different angles. People who've been in prison, people who have someone who has been in prison, people who have worked in the prison system previously, and advocates like myself who are interested in some reform, some things that need to change. Primarily, this is to inform you, the public, about prison conditions and to hear in people's own words what prison was like in their experience. I met Donald at the National Day of Empathy that we did in Des Moines this last year and found him to be very, very personable and having a lot to offer as far as information and as far as the way that he did his time and what he has done with that time and what he has done since his release. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Donald, and please enjoy listening to him. Thank you. And it's all yours, Donald.
Okay. How y'all doing? My name is Donald Hinton. I'm 35 years old. I did 8 years in prison. I did 2 years in state prison and then 6 years in federal prison for guns and drugs. I'm from a small town called Alton, Illinois. It's East St. Louis area, and I moved to Iowa to get away from that type of lifestyle. But the thing about that was I brought that type of lifestyle to Iowa. And in Iowa, it's different. Trouble don't find you in Iowa unless you want trouble to find you. Down where I was at, you could walk down the street and go to jail for nothing. But in Iowa, it's different. If you're not causing trouble, more than likely trouble won't find you. So I brought the trouble with me, and then I ended up going to prison for it. So while in prison, I was in the state correctional facility for 2 years, and it was Mount Pleasant, Iowa. I was in there. I used to drink and smoke and all of this stuff. So I got sober. I got my mind right, and I started reading books. And reading books helped mold me into what I am today. I'm not the best person in the world, but I'm better than what I used to be. So reading those books is really what changed my life. A book by the name of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is what really opened my mind to investing, and then Think and Grow Rich opened my mind to changing my lifestyle. So in the state system is pretty much spend for yourself. Like they have programs, but it is really not like helpful, right? Like it's like I want to say a gimmick, right? They put you in these programs and it's just chewing you through. But if you willing to change, then you can change. So I took a couple programs like the IPI program. That was a work program. So I did that. I started saving money like that. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough to, buy a commissary and make phone calls. After I left the state system, I went to the federal system, and that's completely different from the state system. The federal system is if you don't know about it, it's worldwide. Like I mean, it's national. So you can catch a case in Iowa and end up going to Kentucky to do your time. That's how the federal system works. If you catch a state case in Iowa, you will do time in Iowa. So I caught a case and I went down to Kentucky. I went to Wisconsin first, and in Wisconsin, that's really what opened my mind to changing. So in Wisconsin, my family used to visit me. My family used to visit me. It was my son and his mom. They used to travel all the way to come visit me and put money on my books, help me out. And one day, my son came to visit me, in the exact same visiting room that I visited my dad at. See, my dad did 20 years and he ended up going to federal prison. My grandpa went to federal prison. My
Wow.
auntie went to federal prison. So it was like a lifestyle for us, right? So my son came to visit me in the exact prison that I visited my dad at. And that right there broke me down. I got back to my cell and I cried and I made a vow that I was going to change. So I started reading more books. I started getting away from the TV. Um, and while I was in there, I ran a store, right? I ran a store and I sold honey buns and cakes and sodas. So just like in the state system, they got a work program. In the federal system, I was working for Unicor. Unicor is if you understand like those old movies where they used to make license plates and stuff, that's prison labor. It still goes on today. It just changed forms. So in that prison, we used to make cable cords for like Humvees and tanks and stuff like that, or make lights for like the federal parking lot. Right? They have lights outside, so we used to make those lights and stuff like that. I was the accountant. So all of those invoices that came in, we processed them, put them in the computer, and paid the bills. So I was an accountant. So mixing those two skills of being a businessman with understanding accounting, I ended up saving all of my money, living for free, stacking my money from my jobs. And when I got out of prison, I had $10,000 saved up. So I moved to back to Iowa just so I wouldn't have to go to that same environment. And I moved even out of the town I was in. I was in Fort Madison, but I moved to Davenport just so I wouldn't have to go back to those same people. And I didn't know nobody in this town. I wasn't from here. I just started fresh. I had to change my environment if I was going to change myself. So the only person I knew was my landlord. So I simply asked my landlord, "Hey, you got a building you want to sell?" And he sold me this building, and I it was a duplex. So I still lived for free, and I went to work out at Sterilite, and I still saved my money, lived for free, and then I bought another property and another property, and now I'm on my 15th property. So investing was something that I understood. I understand if you spend money to make money back, then that will put you in a position where you can live the best life possible, right? So that's what I did. And now I actually wrote a book. It's called From Prison to Properties. And in this book, it's the basic financial literacy you need to understand when getting into real estate. A lot of people can't get into real estate because they credit might be bad or they don't have job history or whatever the situation may be. So I decided that I was going to pivot and start teaching about the stock market. I'm an all around investor. So the stock market is something else that came natural to me. So I'm in the process right now of writing another book and creating a course on stock market investing. So that's going to be the next thing. And that's pretty much what I feel like my mission is, just to try to help them, that 23-year-old me that's out there doing the dumb stuff, help him see a new way of doing something that won't lead him down the same road I went down. So that's pretty much my story and um, how I started.
And you've done wonderful. You really have done wonderful for
Thank you.
yourself. It sounds like what you're saying is that the prison system offered you, the Iowa prison system didn't offer you very much in
Yes.
terms of rehabilitation. And where you got some help was when you got a job in the federal system.
Uh-huh.
That,
Yeah.
that really helped. That's where you made money. That's where you were able to save money. That's why you were able to put yourself in a good position when you left. So, so in your opinion, programs where inmates can actually make a decent wage and save
Mhm.
would be really, really helpful toward rehabilitation.
Yeah, not only that though, but the education. I feel like education is more important than money because if you have the education with no money, you can get the money, right? In the state system, they don't have educational programs and they don't have programs that give you a lot of money, right? So it's and then you got to think about the environment of the state system versus the federal system. This is what I like to point out to a lot of people. In the state system, you around the people that rob the liquor store. You're around the people that get high and things like that. In the federal system, you around the guys that embezzled $100 million and the doctors that ended up falling to the opioid epidemic.
Mhm.
So you around two totally different types of people. So then whenever you mix the people, like the people in the federal system, they got money. Like there was old kingpins and things like that. So they have money. So now they teaching you about money and they also uh, supporting your hustles. So whatever you hustling, like if you selling honey buns and sodas and stuff, they'll buy it, because they have the money. But in the state system, they depended on a family and they wasn't good people on the streets. So they was robbing people, and then now they in there depending on their family, and their families is out here struggling. So they don't have the means to help you, right? They don't have the education that they can teach you something new. That's the programs in the state system is not superior to the programs in the federal system. So they're not teaching you nothing. And it's just like the state system. That's why you see a lot of people come home from the state and keep going back as opposed to the federal system. People from the federal system, they don't usually go back as much as the people from the state. I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm guaranteeing like a doctor is not going back to prison after he get out of prison, as opposed to the guy that robbed the liquor store that didn't learn anything new. I bet you that recidivism rate is way higher.
And you're correct. The recidivism rate is very different in the feds than it is in the states. So the apprenticeship programs that existed in Iowa at one time, that Tim Deesberg and Iowa Prison Industries actually created, and there were a good number of them. There were like 30 or 40 of them at one time, and they've a lot of that has disappeared since the murders that happened at Anamosa 3 or 4 years ago. But from your experience, you would say that that is really valuable,
Yeah.
some kind of an apprenticeship program that actually teaches you a career, because people were leaving with their as a journeyman. They could come out here and get a job as a journeyman,
Mhm.
electrician, plumber, a variety of high paying jobs. So you're saying that was a very good thing
That
that
was
the state.
it was absolutely necessary. When I was in the state prison, they still had the program. So I was like carpentry. We made all of the furniture for the colleges in Iowa. So I was doing basically like carpentry and woodworking and stuff like that. So that's actually something that can help people. So if they taking that stuff away, then what is they leaving them with? What is they giving them to rehabilitate them? They're not giving them nothing.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's important. That kind of insight is very important. That we need programming, we need actual rehabilitation for people to be able to have a career, to have an education, to be able to support themselves and their families once they are released from prison. Um, you talked about your son. Can you talk a little bit, if you will? I don't know if you want to, and you certainly don't have to, but can you talk a little bit about your relationship with your son now? I think you froze. There you go. Now you're on. Okay. Did you hear my question?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I asked you if you're comfortable, if you would talk about your relationship with your son.
Okay. So while I was in prison, so I have two sons. What while I was in prison, uh me and my second son, mom, we had just broken up, so we wasn't together whenever I went to prison, but it was like still fresh. My first son, me and her was never together. So me and him didn't see each other or talk the whole time. But when I got out, I had custody of him for the first 3 years that I was out of prison. So that's how we made up the time that I was gone. But my second son, he's the one that had came to visit me. He came like when I was in Mount Pleasant, he came almost like every week, every 2 weeks to come visit. But when I went further away to the federal system, they came whenever they could. So uh, my relationship with them, it was like strained. You don't get to see them, you don't get to talk to them like that. And I was more in like hustle mode where a $3 phone call, I wasn't about to be. I was people like that's the thing that people don't understand. Like those phone calls are expensive. If you're making $2 a day or $2 an hour or whatever we was making, and you gotta spend $2, $3 for a phone call, that's eating up all of your money. So I wasn't really calling home like that. Like it was just taking too much. So uh that relationship was kind of strained. Like we making it up now, but back then, like we hardly ever got to talk.
And it sounds like you reached out and you've done a really good fatherly job of repairing that relationship, and that
Hmm.
he was open to that, which is wonderful. That's wonderful. For a lot of people, that doesn't happen. So congratulations.
Hmm.
I'm very happy for you and for him for that. Um, I will include the link. I know you have a video out about your the name of your business, which is what? The name of your business, if you
My
want to say.
business is called Second Chance.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's kind of like where we going. We want to give people a second chance. So the properties that I do own, I want to put the people that's getting out of prison. Thought that's what it was originally for. The only thing holding me back is I'm still on probation, so I'm not supposed to be having contact with these guys. So after I get on probation, then I can really roll it out like I want to. But right now, I'm just coasting right now, just to stay
Right.
out of trouble, stay out the way. So I want to give guys a second chance, put them in the houses, and teach them, educate them all of this information that I learned because it's the difference between freedom and incarceration,
And that's
education.
wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And I remember from the Day of Empathy that your focus is eventually on employing people who are reentering from
Mm.
prison. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Um, I will include the link to your video about your business
Okay.
in this when I post this.
All right. Thank you.
Before we close, is there anything else that you want to say or that you want to talk about? I want you to make sure that you've had the opportunity to say everything that you want to say. So do you have
Uh,
any?
the main thing I want people to take away from this interview is that education changes everything. So if you have people that's in prison, send them some books, encourage them to read, learn something new, because that's the difference between freedom and incarceration. If you don't know anything new, how can you do anything new? If you only know sticking up liquor stores and selling dope, that's what you're gonna get back out and do. I learned some new skills, investing in stock market, real estate, and all different types of things. I learned that in there. I got out and I started implementing the things that I learned. So if you can learn something new, you can do something new. That's what I want everybody to understand about the prison system. Like it's a time for you to sit down, think about what you did, and change what you did. And education is the biggest way. So that's really my message to everybody.
That's wonderful advice. That's wonderful advice. And the Pell Grant is now available to people who are incarcerated. So one of the things that advocates like myself are doing is really encouraging and trying to encourage the prisons to allow the incarcerated people to take advantage of that. The caseworkers in prison are extremely busy. The counselors are extremely busy. They're overloaded, and they don't oftentimes have the time or the energy to help people get going with the Pell Grant. So we as advocates try very hard to get families to and other organizations to try to help these guys sign up for a Pell Grant so that they can get some education. Because I agree with you, that's and you're never in a better position than when you're in prison to learn something new. I mean, you'll never be in a better position than you are when you're incarcerated to learn new things. So, well, I want to thank you very much for your time and for all that you've done, and congratulate you on all that you've done. You've really made a wonderful impression on a lot of people. And I know that when we went to talk with the senator when we were in Des Moines, he was very impressed with what you've done and took your book. And I've spoken with him since, and he's very impressed. He agrees, and he's on the team to try to get something better for people who are incarcerated. So that's a good thing that you did. That's a very good thing that you did, impressing him. Um, I'm going to close now. And once again, thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you who have listened and who have joined us today. Once again, this is Iowa Prison Perspectives, and this interview has been with Donald, and it will be posted on the YouTube channel, which is where you're watching it. You can also get information about this video and about other things that are happening that we are doing on the Iowa Justice Action Network website, and on Living Beyond the Bars website, and on Iowa Cure website. All three of those organizations keep their websites up to date with information about resources and about what goes on in the prison system and what we can do to be helpful. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you again. Bye for now.